And here is one side of the main body aft of the cab. Now, I've still got some cleanup on these doors, but it's not a big deal. I'll just go over them with X-Actos. Each one of these doors open and go back up into the, not the ship, go back up into the main body. This is some screen that came with it. I had to do assembly on all these parts first, and then put the doors in. And it's a little bit of a tedious deal, but time consuming, but it adds to the overall effect of the model build once you get it done. I'm going to put a drop of just a little bit of mineral oil on each one of these hinges so they don't stick when you try to open them. I will have to paint and detail all of the details inside like you see here. So that's going to be brushwork. I'll spray paint each one of these interior pieces and then do brushwork to bring out the detail. We will see this again some more in a future video. Alright, I'm putting in these guardrails, or these guide rails for the hatches that slide up. I'm having to use a spacer right now to hold that one into place. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in behind and I put a drop of super glue right there. I'm using Tester's glue, but I put a drop of super glue right there to strengthen it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come back after I get this part in on the other side of this spacer. I'm going to make a permanent spacer in between these two parts, and then I'm going to add some strengthening material in behind all these rails so that they hold together and last longer. Additionally, I'm going to put a drop of mineral oil in all of the rails to make them work smoothly. Having said that, this is not something that you're going to be able to open and close 100 times a day. I know you probably already know that. I just want to make sure that I let you know that either open them for a while and then close them later, or do whatever you want, but I can't attest to the fact that they will last that long because they're very precarious, especially this one here. There's not a whole lot of meat for it to grab a hold of. That's why I'm going to add some additional material to strengthen it, in behind and underneath it. Just wanted to let you know. Alrighty, so here we have the cab of the Simba 8x8. This has been a major pain in the you-know-what. This is not glued together. As you can see, it's just taped here and here. Because of whatever heat damage, every one of these parts was slightly warped, and slightly warped just enough to where it did not want to go together. So what I'm going to have to do is come up with some supports so that I can square up the frame underneath along with the sides a little bit at a time before I actually do final assembly, because as you can see here, even with being taped together, things just will not align. Okay, they will not align, so I've got to make some adjustments to each one of the parts. Now I've got this cab essentially in two pieces, and it's nowhere near done. What I'm doing now is I'm planning the lighting on this. So I had to totally redesign the construction process to make room for the wiring and to be able to hide the wiring, but still be able to have functionality of the lighting. Okay? Now this has got pockets as well as the other parts. I'm going to have to ask Matt if there's some things he does not want me to include, because this is set up to be a fire truck, but we're turning it into like an urban assault vehicle for the desert. Anyway, I will show more of this as the assembly progresses. I will also show the lighting that's going to be going into this. Okay, I've got some bad news. Son of a buck. You see these clear windows? These clear parts for the wig-wag lights? They don't exist. Whoever I bought this kit from snipped off here and here, so those clear pockets do not exist. I have to scratch build and recreate those. So I'm gonna have to get some thick PETG and then plot out each one of the wig-wag pockets for this entire truck slash vehicle, urban assault vehicle, and there are several of them that go on the back deck. Okay, anyway, it's part of the job. There you go. Okay, and here you see some more of those pockets where the wig-wag lights go, the emergency lights. Okay, and here is, you see this here, this is that piece I showed earlier. That is this piece right here. See, one of the windows dropped off. That's this piece right here. I looked all over. This piece was never in this box. That's where all 6 of these clear parts were. So I wonder if maybe that's why they sold the kit. Because this is like an 88 kit. 88, 89. This is an old kit. Anyway, so I got to reconstruct all those clear pockets. Just an FYI. Okay, so here are the parts listed out on the parts list with all the sprue and everything. What I did here is I referred back to what the missing part for the steering gear looked like. Took references off a couple of different parts that are still on the trees, and I came up with this. Now I'm going to have to shave this down and shape it a little bit. I've got to drill 2 holes, and I've got to put a rod into one of those holes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sand this down, smooth it out, make it look like a professional part, drill 2 holes in it, and put a steel rod from a coat hanger into one of these to act as a pivot for part of the steering gear. And I will show that after I get it done and put into the chassis with the steering gear and test fit everything before I put the main body onto the chassis. Okay, here's the top of the back portion of the Simba, the trailer or the main body, what have you. As you see, I've got these pockets here, but I don't have the parts for the clear wig-wag lights, or the clear parts for the wig-wag lights. So I'm going to take this piece of 110-pound cardstock and make a square. I'm going to take this piece of 80,000 styrene, square it up, create a grid, and make a bunch of squares and cut them out and use them after making templates on each corner to come up with enclosures that I'm going to make from this PETG, so that I've got clear, although I'll be sanding it to frost it to make it look translucent, to come up with these translucent pockets for all 6 wig-wag lights. Here, 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 and on the cab. Now what I'm going to be putting in here is I'm going to be putting in here red and blue, red and blue, red and blue, red and blue, and a white strobe, so you'll have more than one circuit to choose from. You can have always on red, red flashing, red and blue intermittent wig-wag flashing, and white strobe, or red and blue flashing, wig-wag, and strobe at the same time. So you'll see when I get to that point. But first, I've got to make these pockets, or these pockets for these wig-wag lights. Then the next thing I've got to do is I got all these pockets to fill in with parts, and I've got to put the lids over each one of these and shoot everything with flat black except where I'm going to put the wig-wag lights and the strobes. I'm going to have to mask that off so that when I shoot everything, I want this to be actually white. But I'm going to shoot everything flat black, come back, install the wig-wag lights at the time that's necessary after I create the pockets, and then I'll paint the interior and sides of each one of these pockets flat white to reflect the wig-wag lights. Alrighty then, as you see here, I use the factory edge with the cardstock square that I made. That's an 11 by 17 sheet of cardstock. I very carefully folded it over to get a good thick square to use to mark off a squared off rectangle. I have to cut off these crappy ends, and then I'll have a good thick piece of styrene to build up for the inside of those pockets for the wig-wag lights and the strobes. Alrighty then. You might wonder why you're looking at my stainless steel deep sink. Well, I'm getting ready to throw some styrene in here and some clear PETG because I want to wash everything thoroughly before I start cutting up parts. And on the PETG, I'm going to have to soak off a couple of labels, and then I'm going to have to sand both sides with 400 grit sandpaper to kind of diffuse them so that the wig-wag lights will look really good and there won't be any cold spots or hot spots. Okay, so here's what I mean. You see I've got about 4 sheets of 80,000 styrene in there. There's some adhesive on the back of several sheets. I want to soak this overnight and then use alcohol to get some of the adhesive off after I wash everything down thoroughly. Plus I want to soak these labels off of this PETG. I'm going to use this PETG out of a Room Essentials flatware set caddy and for another pattern, but I'm also going to use this to make those clear translucent pockets for the wig-wag lights and the strobe lights. There you go. Alright, as you see here, I have added a lot of extra bracing and spacing to reorganize the way this structure is held together and to offset some of the remaining warpage. There's spacing and bracing here, here, and down here, and I'm going to let this set up and then come in and add some behind all this, which I'll show later, and finish the tracks that the little swing arm doors are going to sit in. So I've got to let this set up, and I'm going to move on to the other side. Then I'm going to start running the lighting, drilling some holes, and move on from there. Okay, I shot the inner part of the upper cab instrument panel, you know, where communications, radio, CB, CD, whatever, all that usually goes in the top of the fire truck. So I shot it with primer. I've let it dry for 15 minutes. I'm going to go back over it, with about 3 coats of flat black, because right here where there is no instrumentation, which would be the passenger side if you flip this over, this is where the lights are going to come through. Red, green, and white. And here we are again. This is the part that I scratch built. As you can see, I drilled 2 holes into it. Can you see? There we go. I shot this with flat black. I'm going to shoot it with another coat. I'm going to shoot this with primer and flat black because this will have lights going through it and into it. This is the back wall and the bottom deck of the interior of the cabin. This is going to be about the end of my day of working on this. I will start on it again tomorrow. It is almost midnight and I have had enough. Ha! There you go. Alrighty, so I've just drilled 3 holes into the upper dash console, or the upper console, which goes like this. Now you see here you've got some controls and some spots for buttons, etc. I may drill out a couple of holes, small holes, for fiber optics, for lighting. This is for the red, green, and white interior cab lights. Green for operational, red for wartime cruising, and white for standard dome light. There you go. Alright, so here you see the 3 pre-wired LEDs, red, green, white. I will have to open up the holes a little bit, but that's okay. It's looking good so far. These will be only on one or the other. In other words, not all 3 will be on. You'll either have red for wartime cruising, green for operational, and white for standard dome light. I'm also going to put some aluminum, or not aluminum, some chrome vinyl material on the actual ceiling up underneath behind this, so that it will reflect the light into the cab, because most of the interior of the cab is going to be flat black or matte black. Okay, now you see these 3 positions here. This is where the seats go. Here's the driver's side seat location right here. There's a little console right here, as you can see, just barely, because everything's matte black. I want to light from underneath, and I want to put some lights, like a little string of lights left and right, to show that the console buttons light up and or switches. So I'm going to drill some pilot holes for that as well. Okay, so here are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 holes here. I may add some more later. What I'll do is I'll thread colored fiber optics through here from underneath, and then shoot this with black again, even covering the fiber optics. And then when I'm ready to come in and do some final work, I'll snip off the heads of those fiber optics and still have the different colors to look like control console lights or buttons. Same here, I'll wallow some of these out, align them a little better, shoot them with whatever color, snip off the heads before installation, and so on. Okay, here's that little swing arm that I made, and this is the part that it fits on. It's a perfect fit on there. So now I've got to come up with a pin for this hole up on top. So I'm going to look around, see what I can find that's going to be the exact right size, and or make something the best I can. So there's a scratch built swing arm. I would take time to make it perfect, but frankly it's not going to show, and right now it looks good enough to me because it is functional and it does fit and it's the right position and the right spacing.